Our ecosystem is sustained by the roles and niches of different organisms, playing key important roles. From providing habitat, supporting food webs, and maintaining deep sea biodiversity, to the symbiotic relationships with other organisms and where their predatory activities contribute to the delicate balance of the ecological food chain. Let's take a closer look at these simple and yet remarkable organisms to uncover and explore the secrets of the first animals. The last kingdom from the Whittaker classification is the kingdom Animalia, which includes multicellular eukaryotic organisms. Most animals show a higher level of tissue differentiation. Kingdom Animalia is divided into two phyla, Invertebrata and Vertebrata. Invertebrates are the animals without a backbone, and vertebrates are animals with backbone. Let's first take a look at Invertebrata, which is further classified into 8 major phyla: Porifera, Cnidaria, Platyhelminthes, Nematoda, Annelida, Mollusca, Arthropoda, and Echinodermata. Phylum Porifera includes 4 bearing animals which are commonly called sponges. Although they are the most common and diverse in the marine environment, around 150 species of sponges live in fresh water. Sponges have very simple structures and are either radially symmetrical or asymmetrical. Sponges are highly branched, cylindrical, and hollow. A cavity called spongocoel is enclosed by the body. The body is supported by a skeleton made up of calcareous or siliceous spicules or spongin fibers. Sponges have a loose organization of cells, which are specialized to perform different functions. The different cells found in sponges are pinacocytes, which form the protective layer of the body, choanocytes that maintain the water current inside the body, and amoebocytes, which store reserve food. Sponges exhibit holozoic mode of nutrition. They capture food brought close by the water currents, which are created by the choanocytes. The food material is then digested by the process of intracellular digestion, and the remaining water is thrown out of the body through the osculum. In sponges, the processes such as respiration and excretion takes place by the means of simple diffusion. Sponges have many systems of canals. Choanocytes line the inner surface of these canals. Through ostia, the water enters the spongocoel and leaves through a single large osculum. Poriferans reproduce asexually by budding, fragmentation, and even by regeneration, where fragments are a part of a body or even isolate itself of a sponge can regenerate or reorganize into a complete sponges. These organisms can also reproduce sexually. The male gametes are released into the water by a sponge. Fertilization between these male gametes and an egg cell then takes place in the body of a neighbor sponge, resulting into the formation of a new individual. Some important examples of poriferans are Leucosolenia, Cycon or Scypa, Euplectella, also known as Venus flower basket, and Euspongia, commonly known as the vat sponge. Based on certain similarities, such as intracellular digestion and the resemblance of Amphiblastilla larvae to a flagellated protozoan, it is said that sponges may have evolved from colonial flagellated protozoans. In the marine ecosystem, everything has its place. Whether it's detritivores on the ocean floor, releasing nutrients from carrion, or top predators keeping fish populations in check, all creatures have an important role to play, but many are overlooked. One such group is the Cnidarians, a phylum of organisms that contains corals, anemones, hydroids, and jellyfish. Together, they help to uphold the diversity and stability of the entire marine ecosystem through their roles as predators, shelter for small organisms, and filter feeders. Let's take a look at this unique group of marine creatures. The phylum Cnidaria contains around 13,000 living species. Surprisingly simple, yet beautiful organisms. They are classified based on a number of distinct features. For example, they tend to be radially symmetrical, meaning that their body structures extend outward from the center. They are multicellular and generally consist of simply an internal cavity and a mouth. But Cnidarians come into two basic body forms, the polyp and medusa, which often occur within the life cycle of a single Cnidaria. These marine organisms are classified into 5 different classes: Anthozoa, Scyphozoa, Staurozoa, Hydrozoa, and Cubozoa. Generally speaking, polyps are tube-shaped and sessile with a ring of tentacles around the mouth. Medusa, on the other hand, are umbrella or bell-shaped and can move freely with the currents. The life cycle of a moon jellyfish sees its larva swim down to the seabed and attach onto bedrock. There, it develops into a small polyp called cystoma. Over a long period of time, the polyp undergoes a process called strobilization, rearranging itself into a tube-like structure that resembles a stack of coins. Each coin is in fact a tiny medusa, which are released in turn to drift off and develop into mature adults. Some species are able to revert to an early stage of their life cycle, allowing them to regenerate themselves continuously. Commonly called jellyfish, medusas possess tentacles that hang down below the umbrella. Their diversity is staggering. The largest, the lion's mane jellyfish, has tentacles that grow longer than 27 meters, or even longer than the blue whale. Many are slowing-moving planktonic animals, meaning they are not efficient at actively swimming and must rely on ocean current to help them move. But don't be fooled by their apparent placid nature. Jellyfish have long been described as being the most important predators in the seas. Long tentacles are used for a range of functions, including catching food and attacking using stinging cells called nematocysts. These nematocysts, which unite nearly all members of the phylum Cnidaria, from corals and anemones to jellyfish. They are a unique feature, a capsule containing a coiled thread which can be shot outwards to catch prey or repel predators. A modified flagellum acts as a sensory trigger, rapidly ejecting the nematocyst thread when it's touched. This adaptation is an advantage to organisms that cannot actively hunt their prey. Instead, they adopt sit and trap or float and trap strategies, using their nematocysts to stun or kill prey that collide with their transparent tentacles. One of the deadliest examples of this is the Portuguese man of war, a colony organism consisting of many small animals called zooids working together. This is made up of 4 separate polyps. The uppermost, a gas-filled bladder called pneumatophore, sits atop the water like a ship at full sail. The tentacles are the man of war's second polyp. Long, thin tendrils that extend 50 meters below the surface, covered in powerful nematocysts used to kill small creatures. Once animal prey is captured, muscle in the tentacles draw prey up to a polyp containing the digestive organism called grastozoids. The 4th polyp contains the reproductive organs. Many cnidarians produce colonies like the man of war, composed of tiny creatures. On the seafloor, sedentary colonies of polyps secrete a calcium carbonate skeleton to provide a rigid structure. These are the corals, perhaps the most important cnidarian in the marine ecosystem, building expansive reefs that support a huge diversity of creatures. Their rocky structure provides shelter for reef fish and invertebrates, and protect coastline from the damaging effect of wave and tropical storms. They also play a part in the carbon cycle as a carbon sink, sequestering carbon in their skeleton. In doing so, they keep this carbon from returning to the atmosphere. Even after they die, the stony structure can store it for thousands of years. Coral polyps form a number of important associations with other organisms. Notably, the survival of stony corals depend upon the symbiotic relationship with tiny algae that live in their tissues, called zooxanthellae. The algae use sunlight to produce sugar via the process of photosynthesis and provide the corals with energy. In return, the corals provide protection for the algae within their tissues. This mutualistic relationship that upholds reef and consequently supports 25% of all known marine species. Another relationship forms between crabs and anemones that live on their shells. This association benefits the anemone by providing it with transport and giving it better chances of finding food. The sea anemone protects its host from predators in return, of course by making use of its stinging nematocysts. Similarly, reef fish like clownfish rely on symbiosis with cnidarians like anemones. The fish have developed immunity to these stings by secreting a thin layer of mucus over their bodies. Without it, the clownfish would be stung to death and consumed by the anemones. Other fish have a similar association with larger drifting medusa. Those that are immune can take shelter among the jellyfish tentacles, baiting the trap for another fish. In all these examples, we see creatures from vastly different groups depending on cnidarians for survival. This goes to show just how important jellyfish and their relatives are in increasing biodiversity in the oceans. Overall, there are so many different kinds of cnidarians that they have many points of importance. Coral reefs are a form of many millions of cnidarians and are home to staggering biodiversity. Jellyfish are important predators in the open ocean food web, but they serve as food for many other species as well. Sea anemones fulfilled a similar role but in the shallow, also serving as hiding place for clownfish. Thus, this unique and abundant group of creatures is integral to the function of many marine communities, from the open ocean, the coast, and the benthic zone of the deep sea. The third phylum is Platyhelminthes, which includes flatworms, which are unsegmented, bilaterally symmetrical worms. Flatworms show a definite level of organization. They are the first and the simplest organism having an organ system. Flatworms do not have a definite skeleton, but have a cuticle which protects their bodies. Flatworms have a highly branched cut with a mouth, but the anus is absent. A muscular septoria pharynx is present for taking in the food. Flatworms mark the beginning of cephalization. Cephalization is the development in the head region of a light-sensitive organs called ocelli. For example, Planaria have eye spots at the anterior end. Non-parasitic flatworms respire through their body surface, while parasitic worms are mostly anaerobes. Parasitic flatworms bear organs of adhesion such as hook suckers and spines. In flatworms, the central nervous system consists of a head ganglion connected to the nerve cord, which are interconnected across the body by transverse nerve connections. Excretion and osmoregulation in flatworms is controlled by the flame cells. These cells beat incessantly, resembling a flickering flame, and are hence called flame cells. Most flatworms can reproduce sexually or asexually. They are hermaphrodite, that is, both sexes are present in the same individual, except in the case of Planarian, which are monoecious. The development may be direct where eggs hatch into small tiny worms that resemble the adult, or it may be an indirect development with the eggs hatched into ciliated larval forms. Phylum Platyhelminthes is further divided into three classes: Turbellaria, Trematoda, and Cestoda. Class Turbellaria includes non-parasitic and aquatic platforms which possess a great power of regeneration. An example of the same is Planaria. Trematoda, which is the second class, includes parasitic flatworms that live inside the host. These worms are commonly known as flukes. Examples of this class are Fasciola hepatica and sheep liver flukes. Flatworms, which belong to the third class, that is Cestoda, are known as tapeworms. All tapeworms are internal parasites, as the anterior end of the body, the scolex. They have suckers and pokes for effective anchoring to host tissues. A good example of this category is Tanea. The most primitive flatworms resemble the planula larvae of coelenterate in their structural organization. Majority of the flatworms are entoparasites and can cause diseases in humans, sheep, goats, dogs, and other domesticated animals.